Lena craved the unknown. Abandoned houses, forgotten graveyards, places others shied away from, these called to her. She wasn't afraid. Not really. There was a thrill in the silence, in the dust and shadows that spoke only to her. Her friends, though, they were different. They liked their adventures a little less real. It was a Saturday, the air thick with the promise of rain. Lena sat on her porch swing, the rhythmic creaking doing little to soothe her restless spirit. Her phone buzzed. It was Maya, her best friend, proposing a hike. Not just any hike, though. This one was to Whisperwood. The very name sent shivers down most people's spines. But to Lena, it was a siren's call. Whisperwood? Chris, Lena's other friend, sounded skeptical even through the phone. You're kidding, right? That place is creepy even in broad daylight. Maya giggled nervously. That's why we should go, for the adventure. Besides, Lena's up for it. All eyes turned to Lena, an unspoken challenge hanging in the air. Part of her, a small part, hesitated. Whisperwood had a reputation, but the larger part, the part that craved the unknown, won out. Let's do it, she said, her voice firm. The decision was made, there was no turning back. They packed snacks, water and flashlights, their laughter a thin veil over the growing unease. As they drove towards the edge of town, towards the woods that loomed like a sleeping giant, the sky began to darken. It was almost as if the very air around them knew where they were headed. Old Mrs. Henderson, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, caught them at the edge of town. Her eyes, though clouded with age, held a sharpness that made the group pause. Whisperwood ain't no place for young'uns, she rasped, her voice hoarse. Her words seemed to hang in the air, heavy and foreboding. Turn back while you still can. They exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of her warning pressing down on them. Mrs. Henderson was known for her eccentricities, but there was a gravity in her tone that was hard to ignore. It was as if she had seen things that no one else had. It's just an old wives' tale, Mrs. Henderson, Lena said, trying to sound confident, but even she couldn't hide the slight tremor in her voice. We'll be careful. The old woman shook her head slowly, her eyes never leaving Lena's. The woods, they remember, they whisper. Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet it sent chills down their spines. And sometimes she leaned closer, her voice a chilling whisper. They take. The group felt a cold shiver run through them. Their laughter died in their throats. The gravity of her words settled over them like a dark cloud. They thanked her, more out of politeness than anything else, and continued on their way, her words echoing in their ears. Each step they took felt heavier than the last. The closer they got to the woods, the heavier the atmosphere became. It was as if the forest itself was watching them, waiting. The air grew still, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves, each rustle sounding like a whispered warning. The forest seemed alive, its whispers growing louder with each step they took. The sunlight, already fading, struggled to penetrate the dense canopy of leaves overhead. The forest seemed to swallow the light, creating an almost otherworldly atmosphere. It was as if the woods themselves were alive, breathing and watching their every move. The path, barely discernible, was swallowed by the encroaching shadows. Each step forward felt like a journey into the unknown, with the darkness growing thicker and more oppressive. They had been walking for what felt like hours, though it couldn't have been more than one. Time seemed to stretch and bend in the forest, making every minute feel like an eternity. The woods had a way of distorting time. Minutes felt like hours, and hours felt like days. It was easy to lose oneself in the labyrinth of trees and shadows. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent shivers down their spines. The forest was alive with sounds, each one a reminder of their vulnerability. The playful banter had died down, replaced by an uneasy silence. The weight of the forest's presence was palpable, pressing down on them from all sides. Lena, however, felt a strange sense of exhilaration. The fear and uncertainty only fueled her excitement, making her feel more alive than ever. This was what she craved, the unknown, the feeling of being on the edge. The thrill of the adventure was intoxicating, drawing her deeper into the forest. She could feel the energy of the woods, ancient and powerful, pulsing around them. It was as if the forest had a heartbeat, a rhythm that resonated with her own. It wasn't a menacing energy, not exactly, more like a warning, a test. The forest seemed to be challenging them, testing their resolve and courage. "Are you sure this is a good idea, Lena?" Maya asked, her voice barely a whisper. Lena smiled reassuringly. She knew the risks, but the allure of the unknown was too strong to resist. "Relax, Maya. We're just hiking." Lena's words were meant to comfort, but even she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the forest had its own plans for them. The silence, heavy and oppressive, was suddenly broken by a whisper. It was as if the forest itself had decided to speak, breaking the stillness that had enveloped them for hours. It was faint, barely audible, but it was there. They stopped, listening intently, their breaths held in unison. The whisper seemed to weave through the trees, a ghostly thread pulling them deeper into the unknown. "Did you hear that?" Chris whispered, his voice tight with apprehension. They all had. The fear in his eyes mirrored in the faces around him, each one reflecting the same unspoken dread. It was a whisper, soft and low, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It danced on the edge of their hearing, elusive and haunting. It wasn't in any language they recognized, but it sent shivers down their spines. The sound was ancient, primal, resonating with a part of them that understood fear on a fundamental level. "It's probably just the wind," Lena said, trying to sound confident, though her own heart was pounding in her chest. Her words hung in the air, unconvincing even to her own ears. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't the wind. The woods were still. Not a leaf stirred. The silence that followed was even more oppressive, as if the forest was holding its breath. The whisper came again, closer this time, a chilling caress against their ears. It was more distinct now, almost forming words that they couldn't quite grasp. It was followed by another and another, until the air was filled with them, a chorus of whispers that seemed to seep into their very bones. The forest was alive with sound, each whisper a thread in a tapestry of terror that wrapped around them, tightening with every breath they took. Fear, primal and consuming, took root in their hearts. They wanted to run, to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the woods, but their feet seemed rooted to the spot. Lena, however, felt a strange pull towards the whispers, a morbid curiosity overriding her fear. "I'm going to see what that is," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Stay here. Are you crazy?" Chris hissed, his voice trembling. "We need to get out of here." But Lena was already gone, disappearing into the undergrowth, drawn deeper into the woods by the whispers that seemed to beckon her forward. "Lena, come back!" Maya's voice was shrill with panic, but Lena was already gone, swallowed by the shadows. The whispers grew louder as Lena ventured deeper into the woods, swirling around her like a vortex. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. The trees, gnarled and twisted, seemed to reach out to her with skeletal fingers. Then, through the trees, she saw them. Figures tall and shadowy, their forms shifting and swirling in the dim light. They were chanting, their voices a low, guttural hum, the source of the whispers that had drawn her in. Terror, cold and paralyzing, gripped Lena's heart. She wanted to scream, to run, but her voice caught in her throat, her legs felt like lead. The figures turned towards her, their eyes glowing with an eerie light fixed on her. She was trapped, caught in their gaze. And then, as suddenly as they had appeared, they were gone, fading back into the shadows, their whispers echoing in the silence. Maya and Chris, their fear momentarily forgotten, searched frantically for Lena, their calls echoing through the silent woods. But there was no answer, only the rustling of leaves and the distant cawing of a crow. They searched until darkness fell, until the shadows grew long and menacing, until the whispers seemed to mock their every move. Defeated, they stumbled out of the woods, their clothes torn, their faces etched with terror. The search parties went out for days, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, their voices calling Lena's name. But they never found her. The woods, it seemed, had claimed her. The whispers, once a mere legend, became a chilling reminder of the price of curiosity. Whisperwood remained silent, its secrets buried deep within its heart. Some say Lena got lost, her sense of direction failing her in the dense woods. Others say she stumbled upon something ancient and evil, something that claimed her for its own. But the people of the village, they knew better. They knew that the woods whispered, and those who dared to venture too deep, those who ignored the warnings, sometimes never returned. The woods were a place of whispers, of shadows, of things best left undisturbed, a place where curiosity could lead to a fate far worse than death. The whispers in the woods were a warning, a reminder that some places hold secrets best left buried, a reminder to heed the warnings, to respect the unknown, and to never, ever venture into the woods alone.